Can't hear anyone.
Thank you, Kelly.
Hello?
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 We're here. For those of you who are on camera, if you could possibly turn off your camera, the presentation will run better. So go to the top of your screen and you'll see a little video camera. You want to line through that.
I myself will go off camera once I introduce and we're ready to roll.
Right.
Terry, in the few minutes we have left before we start, I wanted to just double check. Amy Kay, thank you for joining us today. If you could let me know your last name and the area where you volunteer so we can make sure that you get credit for that.
Amy Coita in the Philadelphia area.
Perfect. Amy, could you spell your last name for me, please?
That's Kwaidah.
And Philadelphia. Excellent. Thank you. We
I-
want to make sure that you
hello,
get
I
credit for
tried-
being here today.
Hello, I tried to register through Volunteer Connection and it would not let me.
Okay. Can you tell me your first and last name and where you
Sure.
volunteer, please?
Yep, Joan Gavigan, G as in George, A, V as in Victor, A, Ghan, Bucks County, Philadelphia area.
All right. Welcome, Joan. Thank you for calling in and finding a way to be here today.
Okay.
Hello, it is Crystal Baytop. I'm like Joan. I tried registering through Volunteer Connection and it would not let me.
Oh, well, Crystal, you found the magic to be here. So thank you. I see your full name, so we're good to go for that.
Okay, in Philadelphia County. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, so it is 9:30 on the dot. So we're going to start our presentation. This is being recorded. My name is Terry Boylan. I am the supervisor in the Penn Jersey region, which is all of Pennsylvania and all of New Jersey. We are here to do a refresher in the Book Now app that we have at our blood drives. I am also going to go off camera. So if anybody else is on, if you don't mind, that would be perfect. I'm going to let you know that this the Book Now app is on a device that is separate from your registration computer. It is a Kindle-like device. It has been revised and updated since the last time that we tried to use it and implement it. We're going to have questions and answers. If you have questions, I'll pause. We'll check sporadically or periodically with Sue, who's doing the chat. Also, a couple of housekeeping tips. We did show you where the chat button is. If you can put a line through that. I'm sorry. That's where you can chat in the with everybody. We also have the hand raised if you have a question. The camera is where I would ask if you can make sure the line is through it, as is the mic, which is the mute button. This is being recorded. And again, if you could turn off all of your video devices, it would help with the presentation. And this will be given to, or is already given to, your reps, so you can get a copy of it. Or if you have any other questions after we're finished, you can also reach out to them. So setting up and getting to the tablet, to the app, when you get the, they give you the tablet or device at the blood drive, it's defaulted to the Rapid Pass, which says Welcome Blood Donor. To get to the Book Now app, you're going to hit the 9 dots at the top of the screen. And if you hit that, it'll take you to the Book Now app. So once this comes up, that little square right there where the finger's pointing is actually the app itself. And all you have to do is tap onto that. When you get to this page, this is telling you that you're actually in the app, but you have to add some information. So at the very top on the right-hand corner where that finger is, it shows you a wheel. And in that wheel, you're going to tap that wheel, and that'll bring you to information where you need to add. To set up the tablet itself, when prompted, you're going to enter the Book Now passcode. The passcode is capital R, red cross, the number 1, no spaces, all one word. And that goes in the little white area that's sitting there. Once you type that in, you're going to hit the red arrow, and that'll take you to the next screen. Every blood drive has a unique drive ID, which you would get from either the charge person or a staff member if they can get it and the charge is too busy. It's an external number that they will give you, and it's unique to that blood drive specific. So in order to use the Book Now app at that specific drive, you're going to have to get that external drive ID. You're going to type it in right where that box is, and then you're going to hit, you're just going to hit enter. So to confirm the drive info, as it shows here, double click the drive information displayed on the welcome screen. If correct, tap schedule your next appointment now. So this is telling you that this example is from Baltimore Mount Hope Blood Donation Center on February 4th of 2021. So if that was the drive that you were currently in or at, as a volunteer, you can go ahead and hit that red bar, and it'll take you to the next screen. This is the drive roster. The drive roster is refreshed with real-time donor data each time a user begins the Book Now process by selecting the Schedule Your Next Appointment Now button. Shortened displayed names and phone numbers protect the donor's privacy. So this is real time. This is a list of all the donors that are scheduled at the drive that you would be at with the drive ID that you entered. There are there's 3 letters to each, the last name and then the first name. So you can scroll down and find the donor's name. And if not, you can do a manual entry by going to the very bottom where that green square is, rectangle, and tap that bar. To quickly find a donor by using the search bar located above the drive roster. You're going to enter the first few characters of the donor's last name, and then it should pop up with their name, first and last name. Phone numbers cannot be used in the search bar to filter. I see a couple hands. I think I should stop here and answer some questions if anybody has some.
Mayor, you had your hand raised?
Yes, I was wondering, I'm a little confused. Am I doing this to now when our donors come in, I'm using my own phone, or am I using the iPad there?
So this is 2 separate devices. When the donor comes in to register, when they first come in the door, there is a computer at the front desk where you would normally, where we always register. This is specific a standalone. So this can go with the donor. They can do this is being utilized to schedule a future donation for the donor while they're at the drive after they donate.
Okay, so this has nothing to do with day of.
No, this is the day of. It's in real time. So when
But
you
I
go
mean
to
day of, with people showing up day of to donate. That's not what this is. This is the people day of who are donating the next time.
No, this is actually like if you were here at this day and you were donating, your name would be popping up, would be populated in this drop-down box. And then if you find your name after your donation, you can go ahead and select it for the next donation.
So it is to help them register for their very next donation. And the reason we want to promote Book Now or using their personal device is because we do see that those that pre-book their appointments are way more likely to come back for that next donation. because if you think about it, you go to your doctors, they set up an appointment, and you're going to go to that appointment. If you didn't set up an appointment, time lapses and we miss that. So this tool is to really help us get donors to reschedule for that next drive, and it cuts down on our telerecruiting that needs to do some additional work for that. So sorry to jump in there, Terry. I just wanted to
No, you're fine.
help clarify. So I'll turn it back over to you, Terry.
That's fine. I see someone's hand waving to me. Do you want to come off of mute? Do you have a question?
I actually sometimes the manual portion, the bottom is missing and the donut is there, and it sometimes hard when it's missing. That part is missing. It's not there. Donut is there. They want to make an appointment, and that list is not on the. So what do you know? That happens sometimes, or?
Yes, that's on the next screen, how to manually enter a donor's name to register them if they're not found on the drop-down list.
What I'm trying to say, the red writing that is to do it manually,
Yes.
sometimes it's not there. It's supposed to be there, but sometimes it's missing. Do you know something like that happens or no?
Has this been of recent or has this been in the past?
Yeah, it was on at the Boston Center. It was this week, actually. No, last weekend. It was I think it was Sunday, and the later it come out after the person left. It showed we just shut off and go back, and it wouldn't show up when the person was there, but afterwards it was there. So it's like, what happened?
It could have been a bug in the system, even though it's been updated and refreshed. Sometimes that does still happen on occasion. Yes, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Joan, do you have a question?
You can always work
Gary.
with a site supervisor as well for any of those things that seem abnormal. Don't hesitate to engage them. I'm sorry.
I do have, oh, sorry. This is Joan. I do have a question. Out at the Worcester site, I do use this app to reschedule. If we have a donor that comes in and is not able to donate due to whatever reason, they come to me and ask me to schedule. When I go onto this app and go to book their next appointment, it projects that they were successful at donating at this date. Is there a way to switch that so that they could come in next week instead of waiting that time period because they weren't able to donate? But for some reason, the computer isn't updating quick enough for them to then access earlier appointments. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Jen. That's a very, very good question. Chris, why don't we go to the next screen? I think we might have answers in the next couple slides. So we'll go through this and then we'll keep going with the questions. So if the drop-down box doesn't have the donor's name, you're going to go to it and manually enter it. If the donor was deferred in health history, if they're a first-time donor or a walk-in, they will not be listed in the drop-down box of donors' names for that day because it is a real-time, it's real-time, and they were not pre-scheduled, they just walked in. The network connection error actually is this tablet, excuse me, is directly linked to the master computer that links all of the other devices at that drive that day. It is a secured, confidential network that nobody can get into. So this is, so if there's something wrong with the network, this won't work. But then the other pieces of equipment that the staff are using that day at that drive will not be working either. The very first, I just want to alert, the very first top of this line, it says they want the donor ID number. If you're a first-time donor, you will not have a donor ID. A donor ID number is for a donor who has a unit that was given and it was usable. When it gets down to the lab will type the blood type of that donor specific, and then a number will be given to them, and that would be their specific donor ID number, and it's specific to the donor. Nobody has there's no two alike. Then it's going to ask you, what are you donating today on the form? If you hit the done, if you want to go ahead and hit done, you can go to the next screen. This is where it's going to say, once you've located the correct donor, tap the name and select who they are. So it's a staff, a donor, or a volunteer. I had a question earlier that a volunteer at the drive donated, and when they went to do this piece of the book now, they didn't know what to register as. At that point, they would register as a donor.
Terry, we have one question in the chat.
Sure.
Are we scheduling the next appointment at check-in or while the donor is at canteen?
That's a very good question. So if you, Chris, if you can go to the next slide. This will answer your question. So you'll be prompted to identify what happened with the donor at the current presentation. So this says that they donated whole blood, they donated something else, or they were deferred. You're going to be, we ask that you schedule the next donation at canteen, or if the donor was deferred, you can ask them if they would like to schedule, write that in there for the next day possibly, or whatever fits their schedule. Does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So this is for the donation type. You're going to tap the product to be collected at the donor's next appointment. So it's it's whole blood, power red, platelets, or AB plasma. Platelets and AB plasma are specific to donor centers, fixed sites. The blood and the power red are for mobiles for mobile drives. A blood donation that is a good donation is a 56-day deferral. So when they go to pick their next scheduled donation, it would be after 57 days or out. Excuse me, the power red is a 112-day deferral. So if they wanted to schedule their next one, it would be 13 days forward. Drives available by the sponsor. So tapping the desired drive listing, by default, the current sponsor drives are listed first. Sometimes if the sponsor only does one drive a year, that won't be listed. They would have to choose another drive to donate in the future. To see other available blood drives, you're going to tap the screen search by zip code at the bottom. This says that if a sponsor has no future drives scheduled, available drives in the zip code area will appear by default. These will be everything in the area, including donor centers, and it does go down quite a ways. It goes out for quite a while. It's not just within a week or so. I think it's populates for maybe 2 or 3 weeks out. So you're going to go ahead and hit the desired donation area that you would like to do, and then we'll go to the next screen. But I want to stop here. Do I have any questions?
Nothing in the chat, and
Okay.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. So this is drive detail and location. Enter the donor's desired zip code in the field located above the date range finders to display available drives. So at the top where that green bar is, you can just go ahead and type in your local zip code. They're having questions that Philadelphia has a lot of zip codes in there. That'll put you anywhere in the distance of that specific zip code. There are some places that are pretty rural and they are not specifically in that zip code area. So it would bring you within a couple miles radius of where the next drive would be. Also, if you wanted to donate, there was a donor that was going out of town, and when they wanted to donate at their place that they were visiting, they were able to put the zip code in, and it did bring up drives in that area for them to go ahead and schedule the donation. So once you find your name and you find the desired place that you would like to go, date and the day, this will pop up on the screen, and this tells you if a donor prefers to give with a friend or family member, use the available slots column to pick a time with the appropriate number of appointments available. So for example, where the finger is pointing, if I was coming in with my sister and we both wanted to donate at 1:45, if you go to the middle column, there's only one appointment slot open at that time. However, if I went to 1:15, which is above it, there are 2 slots available. So we could both donate and put our names in there for that time frame. Most blood drives, depending on the size of the drive, have multiple, and I'm sure you've seen this, multiple times that can be scheduled at once. Thanks, Chris. Verbally verify appointment details with the donor one final time. So once you find the date, the time, and the location that you picked, you're just going to hit confirm appointment. If a donor has an email address on file, they'll receive an email confirmation within 24 hours. If a donor doesn't receive email appointment confirmation within 24 hours, there may have been an issue with the appointment slot selected. The Red Cross will contact the donor by phone to modify and/or confirm the appointment. If a donor does not have an email address on file, they will receive an appointment reminder call from the Red Cross. So just as a reminder, I also wanted to just throw this out there, that when a donor comes in and they go into their demographic screen when they're back in the health history booth with a staff member, in that screen is where they need to verify their email address. When we have incentives that are e-cards, Amazon gift cards, they all go through an email address. So if there is none listed in their demographics in their profile, they will not get that incentive. And some donors have asked volunteers as to how am I going to get my Amazon card, and that's how they get them.
Terry, we have
Yeah.
one quick question here. Mayor asks, I'm in a pretty rural area and the sites don't necessarily book far in advance. My donors are generally regulars to their particular sites. What do you recommend the ambassadors say to this?
So you're saying that the sponsor may only have like maybe 2 drives a year? Is that the question?
No, not necessarily. They're booking, but I feel like I do them at least 3 times a year. But they don't because a lot of the places are firehouses and it's run by a volunteer there. And so, they have to get their approval to book their firehouse. So, while I'm setting up a future appointment, that might not be booked yet. And, and then they get a little irritated because I'm trying to get them to rebook. And they're like, well, I want to do it at my site and I'll just wait. That's really typically what happens.
Yes, I understand. Thank you. That is true. There are donors that are very specific to maybe they know the chair, the person that's running the blood drive. If it is not, you're right. If it is not already on the books from the account rep, it will not show up in the drop down for where they can pick their next scheduled appointment. So in that case, go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
If I could, I would say this. If these situations happen like that, Mayor, if you can let your BVW supervisor know, then they can circle around with the account managers and let them know that, hey, we're trying to forward book donors, but because these future drives are not already confirmed in the system, they can actually go ahead and start speeding that process up on their end. And maybe, I used to be an account manager. So when I heard these things, I would often say, let me go ahead and pre-book this one as far out as they're willing to go which helps us in turn be able to fill the donor spaces as well as just get it all clear for everybody. So circling back with your BVE rep to let them know is really helpful, and then they can go and have those conversations internally.
Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
There was when you said that I was gonna, my mind just went blank. I'm sorry. You can go ahead to the next screen.
No worries. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
And you have 2 slides left.
Okay, we'll go
Harry,
through it and
I'm
then we'll
sorry,
stop.
there's
Yeah.
one more question, and I'm not sure. From Bill, how far in advance will they receive the reminder email? Bill, I'm not sure. Do you mean the confirmation email after booking their appointment?
It said within 24
Yeah.
hours.
And it's usually less.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I was asking. Yes,
Okay.
thank
So
you.
one of the reasons why they're asking the volunteers to be refreshed and retrained in this Book Now app, the staff have already been trained in it, but sometimes if the staff are really busy, they would ask us if we would help the donor schedule their future donation, because it then also saves on the Red Cross calling potential donors for future donations. And it also helps with the schedule being filled quicker, and there's less work as it gets closer because the scheduled donors are already scheduled. So we'll finish. So the next one is when you confirm, all donors can use their own personal device to scan the QR code displayed on the confirmation screen. Scanning this QR code prompts the personal device to download and save the appointment details to the donor's personal device calendar. Scanning the confirmation screen QR code does not impact email and/or phone appointment reminders. Just something that I like to point out is that when you have, say a donor comes in and they're going to use this tablet and book for the future, they can actually use their personal phone, even if it is a flip phone, it still has a camera, and take a picture of this QR code. If you send it to the email, it doesn't always populate in the email. The same with if someone did the rapid pass while they're sitting there waiting to be taken back to health histories, and the QR code comes up on that as well. Sometimes the donor will hit email to me and it will not email, and then everything is lost. So if you take a picture, you can it can be scanned for future, which is what I always advise donors to do, because they get very frustrated if they had the QR code at home or outside of the door prior to coming into the blood drive, and then something happens, and it just causes a lot less stress. So answer yes was deferred. This is if someone was deferred and you were trying to get them to schedule for a future. It's prompted with what happened with the donor's first and last name. If a donor is deferred, they can still reschedule using Book Now. After selecting was deferred, a calendar will appear requesting the next eligible date of that donor. Tap the date, tap OK, and proceed through the Book Now process as normal. Phlebotomists in health history will tell donor the next eligible date. For example, though, sometimes if you have something like high blood pressure, you can come back tomorrow. If your pulse is elevated, that's another one that you can come back tomorrow. If you are deferred for hemoglobin, which a lot of donors sometimes are, and just as a side note, it could be because their hands are cold. The warmer the hands, the better the reading. So I always used to tell people when I was a team supervisor to put their hands under their armpits, because it's one of the warmest places on your body. And it does help. But if there's something medically, maybe there's certain deferral periods that would not allow them to come back the next day. Next screen, please. Oh,
I
that's-
have, I have a, I have a question. Does
okay.
the computer decide, even though I'm not a phlebotomist, I just want to know, the computer decide when the computer will tell the donor to come back tomorrow or not to come back tomorrow, depending on the issue that they have?
Correct. So sometimes what happens,
Okay.
yeah, if the donor is in health history with the staff person, the staff may advise them to speak to their doctor for whatever the issue may be that may have deferred them prior to coming back. In that case, they would not be able to schedule at that time.
And on the screen, when the option is chosen there as to what happened with that donor, if they were deferred or trying to rebook, it's going to give you that option right there. And when that, what's on the screen when you're selecting that is when the system knows to automatically help find those drives in that date. So it's really important in that step to get that right.
Chris, did you want to give your
I will. Thank you, Terry. I was gonna. So before we jump into more questions, the reason we wanted to show you this is because in the Northeast Division, if you are supporting blood collection at the donor centers, which are the fixed site facilities that have a Red Cross logo on the outside of the buildings, it's always there. That's where the same donors are coming in. That's where we're collecting the platelets and the A for AB plasma. Those individuals, I think I got that backwards. The platelets and plasma. How about that? Those sites, you will be asked to support this process in when you're working those shifts. If you're supporting a mobile drive, one that's in the community, one that's at the VFW, the church, a corporation, those you may be asked to do that. What we do ask, if you're not seeing the device and the staff haven't brought it over to you, they probably are just holding on to it thinking, hey, we'll just do this, right? But if you can support that and ask them for that Book Now device, like Terry said earlier, it's a separate device. So they will actually do their part to make sure they get that to you. If you need a refresher, they're there to help you with that. And I would also say this, give yourself patience and grace. If you've been using it, you know that after a while it's easier. If you've not been using it, I think it's just important to give yourself some patience in the process. So it's newer technology. This device holds a battery life for 18 hours. The inner workings of these devices are more connected to our system instead of just the general Wi-Fi. So therefore, the ability for these devices to connect, even in a rural area, that challenge for the most part has been removed. So they're going to connect to our working devices. So you shouldn't have that issue. But on that note, I will just take a pause and we'll start fielding questions. And I'll turn it back to you, Terry, for that.
No, thank you.
Terry, we have a question in the chat from Mayor. Excuse me. Could you please prioritize the duties of the ambassador so I know how important this rebooking is? I'm always alone at my sites. Registration, canteen setup and maintenance, scheduling the next appointment, engaging the donors while waiting, assisting with fainters.
Well, the most important, obviously, is to have them registered. That's a very good question. You do have a lot of tasks when you're at a blood drive. So the first would be to register them. Also, what if you're by yourself? Normally it should be that there's not as many donors coming through the door because it's a smaller goal. However, once the donor is able to use the Book Now app on their own, you can just let them do it if they've done it in the past. I can say that if you look at what the tasks are, it would be registration and monitor canteen, chatting with the donors as part of monitoring canteen. The Book Now is a convenience that would just help in the future. If things are really going on, I mean, staff also know how to do this, so they could also do it as well. Does that answer the question?
Mira, does that help? Okay, thanks. We have one hand raised. Two hands. Liz, you want to ask your question?
Yes, is there any way to like do a practice session? I mean, like, can we as a volunteer use this to somehow practice and just go through the process?
I'm not sure because it would probably take that as a scheduled donation. However,
okay.
we do have all of the reps. We sent this presentation to all of the reps, the BVB reps, as well as a like snapshot that's a little less encumbersome. This is very detailed. Once you go through the training, the other sheets that we've given out to the reps have it's pretty condensed. Which is also available for you to have and take and use and, you know, play with and keep it with you. So we could ask them as well to share. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Terry, it's Kelly. When I've been at a drive with a volunteer who's not familiar with Book Now, we've actually gone through. We've selected someone from the list of donors that day, gone through all of the processes, but didn't hit confirm.
That's good
I've done
to know.
that too.
So they've been able to see the progression of the windows and the pages to be able to go through that process, but just not hitting confirm and using and going back to the beginning. And then you can become more familiar with it without actually making an appointment.
Thank you, Kelly. That's good to know because before the presentation started, I ran over to one of the local donor centers and I was using my own donor ID. I am a donor and I was just unable to connect and I was just very frustrated. So I didn't get very far. So I'm glad that you said that because, and I actually tried to get a donor that was there, but because I hadn't been there all day, I didn't really know who was deferred and who wasn't. And it was a donor center. So the staff there had already booked future donations for the donors that were there because they go all the time. So that's very helpful. Thank you.
Hey, we have one more hand raised.
That's a good idea.
Oh, yeah, that works, Liz. I've done that also. Okay, Jorman, you want to ask your question?
Yes. At my first volunteer event, we had some people coming in either without an appointment or they were making an appointment the day of. And well, one particular case was someone showed up, but they said they got a confirmed appointment online. But literally maybe 45 minutes before that, the head of the drive came up to us and said, "Oh, we're kind of backed up, so we don't want to, get any more appointments coming in." So this was my first event, so I was with another volunteer, and I was telling the person who showed up, "Oh, since you didn't do the rapid pass, you got to review the paperwork on site." And then the other volunteer said, "Oh, well, they're backed up, so we can't take you." But I just want to make it clear, as long as someone has an appointment, even if the head of the drive says, "Oh, we don't want any more people," we don't turn them away, right? We shouldn't turn them away, right?
100% correct.
Yes, that is
We
correct,
never
especially now
turn.
because we're in an appeal. We're in a blood appeal. Mhm.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I
was
jumped right in.
No, I was agreeing with you. You're fine. You got it.
Yes, thank you. That is a concern that the volunteers we hear often from the ambassadors because we are told that everyone is able to donate. What really should be done is there are times when people come in with the confirmation and they are not on the schedule. It's just, again, a glitch in the system. Maybe they forgot to add them. They're taken. I was a team supervisor. I took everyone, especially during appeal time. And now with the weather across the US, if people aren't able to collect, then the blood gets shifted so that others can, not that we don't have it in our own region, but if there's somebody in the Midwest and they have a blizzard, they're going to try to push some of the blood that was collected locally around that area to those hospitals so that those patients can have the recipient. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. They can get the blood and yes, get the blood and then, be better.
Terry, can I just chime in? This is Christine.
Sure.
As Kelly also said, if a donor has an appointment, that's an appointment if they say that. And if the BDA ever feels uncomfortable, going back up against the charge or kind of giving a little pushback, I always suggest that you call your local BVW rep. The rep can certainly talk to that supervisor and they can get it all straightened out. So we never want to put you in an uncomfortable situation. So please, if you ever feel any type of pushback or anything, just give your BVW rep a call. Thanks.
Thank you, Christine. That's excellent advice. Absolutely. We value every one of you so much in a blood drive, and you're part of the team that that's not necessary for you to get frustrated. Just reach out and we'll work through it.
Okay, Terry in the chat. Linda says many donors haven't wanted to book at the blood drive. They say they want to look at their calendars and then find a drive. Any ideas on how to get donors to set up their next appointment at the drive?
Well, this is a convenience it's a very good question. It is a convenience for the donor to be able to schedule out their next appointment. However, we're not salesmen, so we don't have to give them a pushback or, tell them that it's better that they did. If they want to do it on their own time and look at their calendars, that's perfectly fine as well.
Does that answer your question, Linda?
Yes, that does. Thank you.
Great. Okay, one more. Just to confirm something I think I heard, volunteers can also donate at their site on the same day as their assignment.
The donor or the volunteer that asked the question about when he wanted to future donation schedule was a volunteer that day at that drive, but they were slow, so he decided to donate. If the drive isn't super busy, and if you feel that, I would talk to the charge and see if you can go ahead and donate while you're there. Sometimes it's easier when you're there because then you don't have to come back. I do have a volunteer in the area that always likes to do the Power Reds, and he does volunteer as well. And he will book sometimes the Power Red at the donation when he's there at the drive if there's another volunteer with him.
Okay, let's see. Somebody asked about getting more t-shirts in large sizes.
It's funny that you asked that. We did. For some reason, I guess because I worked in collections for 15 years, I'm still in a lot of their emails. And there was an email that came through just this week for staff, and they wanted to, they took a survey on t-shirts, and I thought it was very interesting. And so I answered them, and it was on how many t-shirts, the sizes, like what sizes we need, and or do we need all these XXLs or whatever. So they are looking at that. Sometimes it's also until they run out. what I did in the past, when I was in collections, I would, if we had a lot of donors coming in and we did run out of, the giveaways, I would start a list of the donor's name and address and whatever, if there was a t-shirt, their size. And then I would actually send it to that account rep to see if they could get more. Because at one drive, it could be 20 in a box and you have 40 people show. And in the next drive, you may have 40 in the box and only 20 people show. So that's what I always did.
And that's a great call out. We can certainly elevate that forward to make sure that the districts are getting, appropriate sizing, which Terry's right, they are looking at that. But if it is a tangible item at the drive, a shirt, a hat, a water bottle, a cup, whatever those items are, you're welcome to them. We actually do have some that are set aside for volunteers to go to those drives. So please make sure to pick up your item there. Unfortunately, because of the online gift card options and that, we are not able to issue those to the volunteers at that time. But the other tangible items, we totally would love for you to make sure to walk away with one of those. And if you personally are not able to wear it, feel free to share it with a family member or a friend.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. When a lot of donors sometimes be like, oh, I have so many t-shirts, I don't need it. And I'd be like, well, give it to your neighbor, sleep in it, give it to your mailman. Like, just, you deserve it. You came in and just take it. And they usually do at that point. I see
Okay,
a
we have
hand.
one question. Sandy, you want to ask your question?
Yes, just a comment. I'm in Northeast Pennsylvania, the NEPA region, and we almost always run out of t-shirts, almost always. And I always feel bad for those who have made an appointment at the end of the day and don't get a t-shirt, or certainly not in their size. And I often tell them, give it to your grandchild or whatever, if it's a smaller size. Not so much the other giveaways, but t-shirts are always shorthanded. And I was always told that, and I've been doing this for 16 years now, that we were not able to make a list and send it in, because I did that a couple of times and got my fingers, smacked. So I don't know if that has changed, but I would like to know that, because I always feel bad for those who come in and donate expecting a shirt. I mean, they don't always do it for that reason, but some of them do. And so I'd like a little bit of clarification on that. And I know, and also for the volunteers, I was always told they were for donors only. I could be wrong, but like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and that's what I was told. Anyway, for what it's worth.
So Terry, if it's all right, I'll take that.
Sure.
So thanks for raising that forward for us, Sandy. So I would say this, yes, things changed, things have changed. The shirts, the items are for donors and volunteers. If you're working at a donor center during a campaign, we ask that you take one item, not one each shift, right? And likewise, if you're picking up multiple mobiles during that time period, just one item would be appreciated. But as far as a list goes, absolutely. And you can always get that back to your BVW supervisor so that they can field that and get that to the account managers who want to make sure those donors get those items. So sometimes sending it back through the collection staff, it could get lost, in the shuffle of all the paperwork they have. So I would say, yes, please do keep a list of anyone who doesn't get it, their size. And then I know that locally, I am in New York, that individual support person for the account manager, she's consistently mailing out items that maybe didn't get to blood drive. So because we are in appeal, they're adding additional items to the boxes for right now. While they have that supply, they don't always. So I know that years gone by, I've seen stacks of t-shirts in boxes and in file cabinets that weren't used. So they have them, would much rather get them out than to have to let them go by for a couple of years, and then we donate them to our home fire campaign team, so that when they're going out and supporting people at, these local fires, they've got a Red Cross shirt that they're giving them. So, be mindful that, yes, we want to try to capture that at where we can.
Okay, Joan has her hand raised. Joan, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Yes, please. If somebody's late for their appointment, so they say within 10 minutes, usually to, scan them in. But if they're more than 10 minutes late, say they're 15 or 20 minutes late and they seem like they're rushing, they had a good reason or whatever, do they go, if it's kind of a full drive, do they go in back of until we're all caught up and then they get squeezed in? Or what's the protocol on that, please?
Again, very good question. This comes up a lot. When I was in collections, I am a supervisor who would take anybody and everybody. Say, for example, the blood drive started late, and there were 5 people waiting that missed their appointments on the system because the drive started late. We would put them in as a walk-in. They're still there. So in the same respect, if the drive was already up and running and somebody was, I think it's a 15-minute window they give them. What I would do is I would put them in as a walk-in and just put them in at that time. Unless there were like 5 or 6 people that came in at once, and then I'd have to actually try to figure out where to slide them in. But it is I don't know if it's a very clear directive, because all supervisors are different and not everybody does the same thing. So I would just encourage you to speak to the supervisor or the charge in the beginning of the day. Normally is when I used to approach the BDA to let them know kind of the flow of the day, but again, I was very open to whoever walked through the door.
Okay. Well, I know at the end of the drive, and I can see their point, if their appointment is for 5:45 and they're the last appointment of the day and they come in at 6 o'clock, they really strict, it seems, with the 10-minute window. So you are turning away a person at the end of the day. Is that, up to the nurses also?
It's not supposed to be.
Okay.
Because what they did, I know in our region, we had, if the drive was over at 5 o'clock, they would put 5 o'clock scheduled donors. And they stopped doing that. So the last 15 minutes prior to the close of the drive of registration, they don't schedule anybody. They should not be scheduling anybody. When I got the schedules, if I looked and I saw that somebody was scheduled at that close of the drive timeframe, I would immediately email the account rep and ask them to move them.
Okay.
But that's not really your position. That would be the charge
I
person.
know, right. I do what they tell me.
So Terry,
but I just
explain
wondered.
what
Okay.
the collection site is like when the drive closes. What's that like for them? And what's their
So-
time restriction?
So when the drive closes at, say, it closes at 5 o'clock, everybody that's still in the waiting queue gets processed through the health history and through the donation process. Sometimes you get lucky and there isn't. And at that time of day or that time frame of the blood drive, the collection staff have 45 minutes, no more than an hour, to process the donors that are waiting, completely into canteen, and then close down the drive and pack up and load the truck and then leave. If you run past that hour, it's considered a late end, and it's money. Staff get paid extra. Site chairs are not always happy because they may have to set the room up for something else. And so that sometimes becomes a little bit of a sticky situation in that respect. But again, I'll leave it at that. I just know what my practices were. So
yeah, and I would add this, because we're in appeal, if there is a large number of folks that were walk-ins at the drive or that were waiting because there was a backlog, that supervisor during the day can speak to their supervisor to get permission for the drive to run longer. So, we're not 100% rigid on things, but without great planning and expectation, we have to be, mindful because some of our equipment requires a special driver. So if you are someone who's in one of our blood mobiles, right, like you are considered, a commercial driver and you have to be off of the road within a certain amount of time. So certain types of drives, because of the equipment we have or so they're a little more rigid in saying, oh, we can't take anymore. But because we're in appeal, they've been asked to be a little more flexible and broad communication in that process. Is that a fair statement, Terry, from your experience?
Yes, I've noticed that sometimes the MUA or the driver is also a DOT driver, and they are restricted for time, even if they're not driving a bus or SCU, yeah, self-contained. So that would be part of the reason why they may be in a hurry. However, normally they don't put those types of drivers on a drive that they may think may run over for that reason.
While the reps can email this out, and they will be emailing this out, I would ask if Kelly, because I know you've done this for us before, if you could drop this presentation, the PDF version, in the chat. And we are working to also see if we can get some documentation, just a refresher tutorial, 2-page document at the drive so that, if anyone needs that knowledge for donors and or volunteers, you'll have that as well. So we'll hopefully have that soon. We just need to make sure all parties are in agreement with that. And so, Sue, any other questions that Terry can field?
Yes, Mir says, I'm frustrated for my donors by the assumption that all our donors are tech savvy and use iPhones. Many of my regulars don't use any technology and walk in because they hear the commercial on the radio or see the easel outside the site.
And that's fine. When they go to the health history booth, they have the option of doing all the questions right then and there. They don't have to do the rapid pass prior to coming in. It just makes their donation
Right.
time a little faster. That's all.
Actually, I'm more specific is the two things that we're addressing here today. One is, you want to book them ahead of time, and they just, I don't know, maybe it's unique to my area, but we have some really lovely but curmudgeon-y, persnickety gentlemen who time after time, depending on who my lead is, my charge, they will be turned away. And these gentlemen are regulars. They do not make appointments. They heard the radio ad. They want to come in and donate. And that charge, first thing she says to me when I walked in is, no walk-ins. How do I just don't feel right turning them away. It breaks my heart.
I think in that case, you really do, Mayor, have to go to the supervisor and say, listen, this is Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is not someone who uses our technology. He does not make routine appointments. He just comes in because he knows there's a need for the blood. And past supervisors have been willing to work Mr. Jones in, right? So just taking that like calm, clear sales pitch, if you will, to that supervisor, just to help them understand a little bit better. Like, I hear what you're saying that we can't take walk-ins. However, Mr. Jones is never going to be a donor because Mr. Jones is not going to use the technology to book that appointment.
Yeah, and that's true then, more than just this one gentleman I'm talking
Sure.
about, I do. And so anyway, well, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah,
And
I will do that. I try
and
to
we
do that.
definitely see that more and more as, our donor base ages and as more in our rural areas, we definitely have some more of those challenges.
Yeah, my rural areas, we have some real old timers, and I'm just so grateful for their regular donations.
Yeah.
Also,
and
if you get the survey at the end of your the week with your drives, you could put that in the comments. I know in my area we share them with all the RD, all the higher ups.
I do feel
So
like
they
my
do.
surveys are left unread and and not, nothing has ever seemed to change. And I've been doing this since I was 15 years old and I'm
Well, thank
65.
you.
So,
Wow.
yeah. So it's the same, it's always the same things. I'm told no walk-ins, and then I get walk-ins because they heard the ad on the radio. And then I'm supposed to gently as I can tell them, I'm sorry, we're not taking walk-ins, and then deal with their frustration. Well, I just heard it on the radio. It says you're taking
Right.
walk-ins. And, it's not a good position to be put in. And I'm
No, I
very
agree.
diplomatic, and I end up taking them anyway because, ultimately I'm the one with the laptop when they walk in. So I'm like,
Good for
okay,
you,
you got
Mary.
a good point. Let's take
Well,
you in,
thank
but you're gonna
you.
wait.
Yeah, and I do take, so first of all, the supervisors see these, the reps call if there's like a major issue, but know that we do elevate these to the collection staff and the account managers, supervisor level and beyond. They are all questions actually before they come to us. Our national team is already reviewing those questions and taking directions and trying to build some processes in place to avoid some of these things. So they are reviewed every single week and ultimately on a final month review before they get to us from a national level down. So definitely that feedback is really important for us. And while it may feel like it's not changing, I know that they're trying to make some things behind the scenes happen. So hopefully we'll get some changes to some of that for us.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Yeah, there are a couple of good suggestions in the chat. Sylvia suggested that, and this is in regards to getting donors to sign up ahead and use the book now. Sylvia suggested telling them that it will decrease the number of emails that they get. And that could be a good reason to go ahead and use book now. Shauna said, let the donor know at registration they can schedule their donation at the refreshment table after their appointment. Sometimes letting them know ahead of time gives them time to check their calendars. Also showing the donor the book now might give the donor some confidence to use it, and maybe next time they will go ahead and use book now before they leave.
Great. Thank you. Great suggestions.
Let's see. Kelly, thank you for posting the PDF. Let's see. Carrie says, is there another link to that PDF? That one requires me to request access.
Carrie, I emailed that document directly to you, and I'm sorry that link may not work for others. If you can let us know. And for the ambassadors on the call, today's our final session, so your reps in the next little while will be sending you the document that we've reviewed today, a very shortened version of it, as well as a link to one of the recordings, so you'll have all of the information in one location.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you and have a great day.
Terry, before we go, we want to thank people for being here today. We want to make sure that you get credit for your participation today. There are some people, when they're in the way that their computer is set up for Teams, only your first name is displayed. So there are a couple of people that I would like to ask if they can come off mute and tell us your first and last name and where you volunteer, or type that information in chat. And to find chat on your device, there's going to be a little thought bubble like a comic strip. And if you click that, you can get to chat, or you may see a microphone and if it may have a diagonal line through it, and if you click that microphone, the diagonal line will be removed, and then you'll be able to talk to us to let us know who you are and where you volunteer so we can make sure you get credit for that. So among the people that I need to catch up with are Deb L, Debbie, Eric. Let's see who else is on the list.
Miss,
Jorman. Let's see. I'll get to the end of the list and then. All right, I think that's the end of the list. So Jorman, Eric, Debbie or Deb
Deb L
L
put
or
hers
Debbie.
in the chat.
All right, so thank you for doing that, or come off mute and let us know.
Miss, this is Eric. I was able to attend the training.
Okay, Eric, what's your last name?
Slusher. It's SCHLOSSER.
And Eric, where do you volunteer? What county or state?
Schuylkill County and Pennsylvania.
Thank you. All right, Deb L, you are Deb Lewis in Central New York. Thank you.
Do we need to add our hours to Volunteer Connection?
If you registered on your local shared group share, you shouldn't. But if you did not register for the session, you should add them on your own.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Debbie or Bob or Jorman, if you're still here, if you can let us know.
This is Jorman.
Hi.
Last name is Pena, P-E-N-A.
And Jorman, where do you volunteer?
I do North Jersey, so Essex County mainly, and Hudson County, Middlesex County, that area.
Perfect. Jorman, thanks for that extra information so we can make sure that you get the hours for today's session. Thank you. Also, if you called in, we've got some people, we've got a person with a 215 area code and a 570 area code. So we can't tell. So if you'd like to come off if you'd like to push, I believe it's *6. If you muted yourself, to be able to unmute yourself so we can let you know, you can let us know who you are. Area code 215-300, we can hear you.
Yes, hi, this is Cynthia.
All right, I'm sorry, that's a little garbled for me. Can you try again, please?
Yes, hi. Good morning, everyone. This is Cynthia Birch-Morrell. I donate in Philadelphia. I volunteer at the Spring Garden facility.
All right. Cynthia, I got your first name. Could you spell your last name for me, please?
BIRCH Morrell, MURRELL.
All right, excellent. Thanks for joining us today by phone.
Thank you.
All right.
Kelly, can you end the recording, please?
I think Sue's got that. Sue?
Okay.
Can you end that? And Lorraine, I see that you're still here. Lorraine, if you could let us know your last name and where you volunteer, please.